The most important data is out. What data am I talking about? I'm talking about the second quarter unemployment data. To be quite honest, we've been talking a lot about the Olympics, modeling competitions, and there's nothing wrong with that. But this is the data and information we should all care about more than anything because it speaks to the health of the economy and the nation. Let's dissect this. The unemployment data is important. This particular set of unemployment data, which was released by Statistics South Africa yesterday, is important because it sets a benchmark for the coalition government of the ANC. And it gives us a clear scoreboard at which to start measuring whether or not they're adding jobs. You know, Jay-Z famously once said, numbers don't lie, check the scoreboard. And it's going to be important for us to check that scoreboard in the coming 3 months to see whether or not jobs have actually been created and added to the scoreboard by the coalition government. Why should we check? Why should we care about the scoreboard? The president promised that jobs would be created in the opening of parliament address. John Steenhuisen, the leader of the DA, the second largest party in the coalition, said that he would create more jobs in the agriculture sector and that, you know, he would be one of the people who would be a job creator in this economy. So it's going to be important to actually be able to measure whether or not those words and remarks have materialized in actual jobs being added. And that's going to be something that's important, right? I hold the view that we have to hold politicians to their words and promises. Otherwise, the system doesn't work for accountability. Politicians should not be able to come and promise everyone a Mercedes C180 and not deliver that. You have to be asking politicians, where's my car? Where's my car? If they promise you a car, you have to be able to ask them, Chief, where's my car? Because if they don't deliver, then you have a mechanism where you should be able to hold them accountable. That mechanism being the vote. So if they don't deliver, you should know, hey, Chief, you promised 2 million jobs. Where are the 2 million jobs? Also, I think something that is worth pointing out at this particular stage is that according to the unemployment data, President Ramaphosa is doing worse than President Cyril Ramaphosa when it comes to unemployment. Worse, much worse. And unemployment has actually been getting worse under his term. So I think my glasses are clean now, so we can continue now or not. Yeah, I can work with this. It has been getting worse under President Ramaphosa. This is interesting because firstly, President Ramaphosa was supposed to be the educated businessman who would be the one who would create an enabling environment for business and someone who understood business and thus would be able to deliver jobs. This was part of the propaganda and the messaging around President Ramaphosa. He's supposed to be the guy with the money, the billionaire, the guy who understands everything. Also, he ran initiatives which have not made a dent on the problem. For example, Youth Employment Service, one of his signature initiatives, that hasn't worked. Another example is the Presidential Employment Stimulus, which has had programs such as the Basic Education Employment Jobs, where they created 245,000 teaching assistants within a variety of schools. But those were just opportunities, right? So those are temporary jobs, and those jobs are not necessarily long-lasting jobs. Also, from my discussions with teachers, these jobs were not implemented very well, these teaching assistants. And, you know, a lot of teachers found that actually the teaching assistants were getting in the way. So then the question becomes, why has the billionaire businessman failed to add jobs to the economy? Why has the billionaire businessman president failed to grow the economy? To be fair to him and to be balanced, it's important to note that there was a pandemic 2 years into the Ramaphosa era, the COVID-19 pandemic. And the pandemic had a very damaging effect on all of the economies of the world. It hit the economy hard globally. Many countries, however, have bounced back and added more jobs than they were pre-pandemic. And they've grown much further. It's also important to say, to be fair to the Zuma administration, that Zuma had to deal with the global economic conditions which were created by the market crashes of 2008, the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, and he had to deal with the market crash which happened in America and Europe. When there are major financial shocks globally, that affects the local environment. It also affects a lot of the other countries. So President Ramaphosa is not the only president who's had to deal with a very, very destabilizing historic moment. Zuma had to deal with the market crash in 2008, 2009, and President Ramaphosa had to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. But he has not been able to reverse the unemployment problem or to materially dent it. Let's look at what the data is actually telling us. And I think it's important for us to also compare that data with the data from the second quarter of 2019, before the pandemic, right? So that we don't look at pandemic data, which may be, misleading in and of itself because of the nature of the catastrophe. Let's look at Q2 2019 to get a better understanding of the picture. Looking at the data from 2019 to 2014, it's clear that the labor force has grown by 2 million. 2 million people have been added to the labor force, right? Which is a growth of 8.7%. Looking at the same data, it's clear that the jobs growth is only 2.5% or 400,000 people. This means that the economy is not adding jobs as fast as the labor force is growing, because only 400,000 jobs have been added to the economy in that period. And it's not an insignificant period. It's a 6-year period from 2019. It's a 5-year period from 2019 up until 2024, right? So that's something that we need to look at. The other thing that we need to note is that the participation rate is not good. 40% of the population that is at working age is not participating in economic activity. And that's a very large number. Labor force participation rate is the proportion of working age population that is either employed or unemployed. So when you look at that participation rate, only 60% of people are either working or unemployed, and that's not good, right? That participation rate is not good. Something else that we want to be able to discuss. The media is not reporting this in the best way, in my opinion, the best way to inform the public about the extent of the problem. The media is reporting that the unemployment rate is 33.5, which is equivalent to 8.4 million South Africans who are jobless. But this is misleading reporting, and I don't think we should be talking about unemployment in this way. That number only measures unemployed people who are still seeking employment, but does not account for the number of people who are known as discouraged job seekers. Discouraged job seekers are people who basically said, I give up. I'm not going to look anymore. I'm done with looking for a job. It is what it is, right? But discouraged job seekers are still unemployed people. And to not measure them gives a misleading picture. I think that the media should try to paint the most accurate picture possible so that the public can understand the nature of the challenge. And what is that accurate picture? The accurate picture is that 11.6 million people are unemployed, right? And that translates to an unemployment rate of 46.4%. 46.4%. Not the number that we're given, which is 33, because you basically do the calculation yourself. It's 11.6 million people unemployed divided by the labor force of 25 million. That gives you 46.4%. So that expanded definition is the number that I think we should all be working with. And I think that's the number that gives the most accurate picture. Another number that I think is important to look at is long-term unemployment. That's a number that I don't think is discussed as much, but I think that it needs more focus. That number measures the number of people who have been unemployed for a year or longer. Statistics South Africa gives that number, and it gives you that number with a 10-year perspective, right? Sometimes when you focus only on short-term figures, the quarter-to-quarter figures, it can make you lose sight of the broader trend. And this can help politicians paint misleading pictures about the nature of unemployment in South Africa. Let's look at what those numbers actually say. In quarter 2 of 2014, there were 3.4 million people in long-term unemployment, on the narrow definition of unemployment, which represented 65.8% of unemployed people. That's a high number, right? We can all agree on that. In the second quarter of 2024, there were 6.4. Look at the jump from 3.4 to 6.4 million people in long-term unemployment. And that number now represents 76.2 of the unemployed people overall. So you move from 65% to 76%. It's very clear that some jobs have gone, they've not come back. And the number of unemployed people in and of itself in long-term unemployment has gone up by 88% in the last decade. It's almost 100% long-term unemployment increase. So if we're thinking about what is the trend is very clear from this data. And Stats SA adds this data to help the media speak about this data. But the media is often trying to protect politicians to simply report on the narrow picture around unemployment, and they don't then tell the public the long-term trends. And this long-term trend is something that is very worrying, and we should be concerned about it. Another thing that we need to look at are the occupation levels. In 2019, close to a third of all the people, 28.9%, who were employed in elementary and domestic occupations. In 2014, that number has gone up just slightly to 29.6. Still about a third of all employed people are working in elementary and domestic work positions. These positions are at risk. These positions do not lead to the kind of economic growth that you want. You actually want to have less people working in elementary work, more people working in other fields of work. So what is elementary work, you may be wondering? There is a classification for work which is known as the ISCO, which I'm going to call ISCO. What that stands for is the International Standard Classification of Occupations, ISCO. It's a system developed by the International Labour Organization, the ILO, to categorize jobs based on the tasks and responsibilities associated with them. This classification aims to facilitate the collection, comparison, and analysis of occupational statistics across different countries and regions. So you should be able to check what's happening in Rwanda, what's happening in the United Kingdom, what's happening in America, what's happening in Zimbabwe, what's happening in South Africa using this ISCO system. Now, jobs are classified into skill levels from skill level 1, which is the lowest skill level, to skill level 4, which is the highest skill level. Elementary occupations consist of simple and routine tasks, which mainly require the use of handheld tools and often some physical effort. Most occupations in this major group require skills, right? Most occupations in the elementary group require skills at the first ISCO skill level. Tasks which are performed by workers in the elementary occupations include the following: selling goods in streets and public places or from door to door, providing various street services, cleaning, washing, pressing of clothes, taking care of apartment houses, hotels, offices and other buildings, washing windows and other glass surfaces of buildings, delivering messages or goods, carrying luggage, doorkeeping, property watching, stocking vending machines, reading and emptying meters, collecting garbage, sweeping streets and similar places, performing various types of simple farming, fishing, hunting, or trapping tasks, performing simple tasks connected with mining, construction, and manufacturing, including product sorting and simple hand assembling of components, packing by hand, freight handling, pedaling or hand guiding vehicles to transport passengers and goods, driving animal-drawn vehicles or machinery. So this is what elementary work entails, and this is skill level 1 work. Now, in order to improve the unemployment conditions in South Africa, my thought process is that South Africa needs to improve its skills training to improve the ratio of workers working in higher skill levels. You need more skill level 2, you need more skill level 3, you need more skill level 4. In fact, I think that South Africa needs more people who are classified as technical or professional. Currently, only 2.88 million people work as either professionals or technical workers, which represents 17.3% of the employed population. I think you need to push that number up to 25 or 30%, right? If you're wondering, what does it mean to be a professional or a technical worker? In that ISCO ranking, professionals are classified as major group 2. And this group encompasses a wide range of occupations that typically require a high level of education and specialized knowledge. What are those categories of professionals? The professional occupations are divided into several subgroups, including science and engineering professionals. Examples of science professionals: physical science and earth science professionals, mathematicians, engineers. That's submajor group 1. Health professionals, examples: medical doctors, nurses, veterinarians. Teaching professionals, university professors, secondary school teachers, vocational education teachers. Business and administration professionals. These include finance professionals, marketing specialists, administrative professionals. Information and communication technology professionals. These include software developers, network specialists. Legal, social, and cultural professionals. These include lawyers, librarians, social workers, right? These are jobs that I think we need more of. When you look at the skill level for professionals, the skill level for professionals is categorized as level 4, indicating that these occupations generally require advanced education training, often at a tertiary level, right? Now, let's talk about technicians, right? In the ISCO standard, technicians are classified under major group 3, which is specifically titled technicians and associate professionals. This group includes occupations that typically require specialized knowledge and skills, often obtained through vocational training or an associate degree. Right. What are the categories of these technicians, or examples, if you will? They are science and engineering technicians. Examples be chemical technicians, electrical engineering technicians, environmental technicians. Then you've got another category, health technicians. This includes medical lab technicians, radiology technicians, dental hygienists. If you look at information and communications technology technicians, you've got computer network technicians, software support technicians. Other technical occupations include agricultural technicians, building and construction technicians. Technicians are generally classified at skill level 3, indicating that they require post-secondary education and specialized training, but not necessarily a full university degree. Okay? So these classifications, as I said, they help with organizing labor market data, sorting out various applications, policy thoughts, and they allow for workforce planning and vocational training and development. It's clear to me that the unemployment crisis is an education and skills training crisis. But if you're not convinced, here's further data. From the World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Index, the rankings of South Africa in skills were as following, right? I'm going to discuss the skills area and then the ranking out of 141 nations. Note, in this year of ranking, South Africa was ranked 60th overall. 60th overall. But listen to the rankings in the skills categories. Skills of current workforce, 101 out of 141. Quality of vocational training, 119th out of 141. Graduate skill set, 102nd out of 141. Digital skills among the active population, 126th out of 141. Skills of future workforce, 107th out of 141. Pupil to teacher ratio in primary education, 109th out of 141. Critical thinking in teaching, 95th out of 141. Most of these numbers are in the bottom third of the global community, right? All of the countries that were ranked, indicating that there's a large opportunity for growth. This is why it's important for us to look at what is happening in the higher education space, in the adult education space, in also the basic education space. Because if you don't fix those issues, right, even when it comes to short-term certificates, because remember, technical training doesn't need you to get a degree. People who are unemployed right now can go and get certificates and actually improve their status. But the TVETs are not in good shape. The throughput rate of TVETs right now is 10%, and it's lower for technical qualifications such as those related to electricity, those related to more complex fields. So that's something that needs to be improved. And I'm not seeing urgency in this coalition, this DA-ANC coalition, in dealing with those issues. Some of the ministers who have moved very fast, Public Works has moved fast. You've seen Gayton McKenzie move fast to make certain announcements. We've seen Correctional Services move fast. We've not seen anything really urgent, radical, drastic from higher education or basic education. And we've been giving them benefit of the doubt, but they haven't shown that they are moving or that they understand the urgency of this particular information and data. There's an interesting stat that I also think is good to just point out. Graduate unemployment decreased by 2.1 percentage points to 9.7 in the second quarter of 2024, compared to 11.8% in the first quarter of 2024, right? That's basically those with matric. Sorry, what am I saying? So graduate unemployment, looking good. Those with matric and less than matric were the most vulnerable, with unemployment rates of 35.8 and 39.3, and this is on the narrow definition. What this shows is that there are still prospects for employment for those who are at skill level 3 and skill level 4, and that the prospects for employment for skill level 1 and 2 are decreasing and worsening. The other factor that we must not forget in this conversation about unemployment data is that there is acceleration in the development of artificial intelligence, and that it is finding its expression in robotics, particularly humanoid robotics. Some of these robotic companies have got a specific desire to replace jobs in the retail space, in the mining space, in restaurants. The government should be preparing its working age population for these developments and getting into the sectors which will be part of this future, not disrupted by this future. One of my biggest criticisms of all of the African leaders is that they missed the wave of computer science. They missed it. I mean, computers did not become big in 2000. Apple Computers did its initial public offering, its IPO, in 1980. It was clear in 1980 that these machines were going to play a big part of the future. I mean, this is part of the reason why Elon Musk became a billionaire, because his father could see the wave. And this man was making video games at the age of 12, right? Because his father could see that, hey, these new computers, these things. So he got his son exposed to that. It wasn't even happening in schools, but he got his son exposed to that. The boy went to America and then made the money that he made, right? From having skills in this new industry. So let's say you missed 1980. I mean, by 1996, it should have been clear to these African leaders. 1996. That's when we had the launch of services such as Hotmail and Rocket Mail, which made email free and widely available, attracting millions of users, particularly in America, but also around the world. By 1997, 10 million users had signed up for free webmail accounts. By 1997, it was clear. If you missed 1980, you should have caught it by 1996, 1997. By the year 2000, let's just give them the 20 years. 1982, not the 20 years. What is that? Yeah, it's 20 years. 1980 to 2000. By that time, computer science should have been taught in every school in Africa. That's what should have happened if we had good leaders. I don't know even how Mandela and Thabo Mbeki missed this, to be quite honest with you. All of these so-called great leaders, whoever it is, Robert Mugabe, whatever, they all missed the obvious. They all missed it. If we had done that, if we had introduced computer science early, we would be part of this future that is now being created. We would have a seat at the table. Maybe you say, well, we couldn't afford it, whatever. Why didn't we give scholarships in mass to people who are graduating with the top grades in mathematics, top grades in physical science? Send them to America. Send them also to Europe so that they can study these things, like what the Chinese did. It wasn't hidden. The Chinese sent people to MIT. They sent people to Harvard, Oxford, whatever. You don't even have to send them to Harvard, Oxford. Just send them to other universities in that top 100. They'll still get the same quality of knowledge. Maybe not the brand, but I mean, things could have been done, is my point. Things could have been done. Now, what are our leaders doing about what they are seeing with artificial intelligence? Are they moving fast enough, or are they missing the bus again by another 20 years? Then the question then becomes, can we afford it? Can we afford to continue to see long-term unemployment go up? And one of the numbers I didn't discuss in detail is that youth unemployment is very high. On the expanded definition, between the ages of 15 to 24, 70% of the youth are unemployed. On the expanded definition, between the ages of 25 to 35, 50% of adults are unemployed. I hate calling people 25 or to 35 youth, because they're grown-ups, they're adults. You're not a youth if you're 25. You're an adult. Even there, this is what's happening. Can we afford 50% of people in the prime of the, as an athlete, if you're between the ages of 25 to 35, those are your prime years. That's when we expect peak production, fastest 100 meters, fastest 200 meters, fastest swimming. When you get past 35, we start to say, no, this guy is past his prime now. As an athlete, obviously, in the work world, you've still got lots of time to actually develop your skills. You can keep developing your skills for much further, depending on the nature of work. But the fact that 50% of people between the ages of 25 to 35 are unemployed should be worrying. It should be worrying. What are these leaders doing? The speeches don't have urgency. And that's why we need to keep an eye on this scoreboard. Because now we have a scoreboard for this coalition. We have a scoreboard now. We're done with the first 2 quarters of 2024. So the next employment data will be the first measure to say, you coalition of DA and ANC, what have you done to add jobs? And if they've not done anything to add jobs, and the numbers continue to get worse and worse and worse, they should be held accountable for that. That's my view. What do you think? Let's have a conversation in the comments. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. It helps others find this content, helps YouTube know that you enjoy this content. Till the next one, let's meet in the comments and have a conversation.